I think everybody at one point in time in their life has had a certain thought. Some people might call it a rather disturbing thought, and that is that I do not belong here, or I should not be here, or nobody wants me. It follows a trend that eventually leads to what some people refer to as self-deletion. And this is an action that has terminal consequences that last in all situations, in everything negative. Now, Austin, what do you have to say with regards to self-deletion? Because I know this is a sensitive topic that we tread with caution, but I think it's something that's very important, because I feel that almost everybody has dealt with a degree of the desire to self-delete and all the things that accompany that mindset and thought process.
So what I'll say, from the people that may be watching, you might look at us and say, oh, they have everything together. Life is great for them. Everything has always been great. You know, they've never had any problems. That's not true. This is something I've actually encountered myself when I was younger. I would say probably about 18, 19, around that age, in college, going through a lot of life, negative situations, or what I viewed as negative situations at the time, happened to me. And it got to a point to where I encountered, multiple things such as depression, anxiety, things of that nature, things that at that time or before that time, I didn't even think existed until I started going through them myself. I used to think it was an excuse that people used to give themselves, that were lazy, or that they didn't want to try to make themselves or get themselves better, until I encountered it. And once that happened and I started going through those things, I got pretty low. I got to a low place in life, and it really, to me, I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't see a way past the dark clouds that were surrounding me. It's like a pilot. I don't know if you've been on a plane when, it might have been raining or things of that nature, but gray clouds all around you. You look outside the window, all you see is gray clouds. And you're like, wow, we're in the midst of a storm. We're in the midst of this big cloud. I can't see anything. All I see is gray. All I see is, an unclear pathway to where I'm trying to go. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm going in the right direction. I don't know if I'll ever get out of this. I can't see. And when you're in that, you have that perspective. At the time, that's all you know. But I'm here to tell you that there's more to life past the clouds and being in that gray atmosphere, being in that gray area. There's more to life than that. And once I hit rock bottom, once I hit that point, I couldn't see that. But now that I'm 25, so basically 7 to 6 years later, I made it past that gray area, and I made it past or outside of those gray clouds. And again, I'm here to tell you that it is doable, very doable. And you, if you're going through this yourself, there's more to life than what you currently see.
One of the last things that you want to hear when you're thinking about self-deleting is that you're being selfish. I think that an interesting thing about this is you're charged. You don't want to hear anything negative, and you kind of want to be self-validated in the fact that you're thinking in the right way. So be careful how you approach something or somebody when they are experiencing these feelings or these emotions or these thoughts, because you coming about and trying to lecture them could have quite the opposite effect, because then they're going to continue down a negative spiral because they're thinking, I'm thinking incorrectly, I'm getting in trouble, people aren't seeing what I'm thinking. Of course, you're validating their negative thoughts and adding to the fire. But one of the things that I want to make clear is that this self-deletion is something that has a very, very long-lasting and rippling effect, especially on friends and family and even in your community. And this is something that you can't see, especially when you're blinded by, like Austin said, almost like a gray filter. You can't see colors, you can't see pathways, you can't see the consequences of your actions. You're only thinking of the immediate, and you're only thinking about your own pain and suffering. As Austin said, you're not alone. And one of the things that truly, truly will help give you perspective is that there are so many people around you who are suffering in a similar manner and have similar thoughts and also have extremely difficult lives, and they don't express it the way you do. And they also don't go through with such severe actions. And Jordan Peterson says something very interesting. He said, it's a miracle that as an entire species, all of humans aren't completely addicted to drugs. And he said, it's an amazing feat that we are actually so collaborative and so peaceful and so calm, even when there are big conflicts and big disputes. It's a miracle that we're still here, because in reality, when you think about it, the amount of self-restraint that we have shown and that we show on a day-to-day basis, it's really, really not that hard to do harm, but it's very difficult to help and do nice things. And that is why you have to be mindful of that. And you have to be mindful and say that, hey, should I take the easy route? Should I take the easy way out? Or should I take the more worthwhile and difficult route? But again, that's for you to decide.
And I'd also like to add, this is going to be a very tough thing that I'm going to ask of you, because I know how it was for me in this situation. You feel like you're completely alone, and you feel like nobody can understand what you're going through. And to a certain extent, everyone's situation is very unique, and I completely understand that. But I do think that it's very important to reach out to someone and talk to someone about this, because one of the big things that helped me when I was going through this was finally getting to a point where I told my roommate at the time how I was feeling and what I was going through. And the thing that I feel like, one of the main factors that I feel like saved my life at the time, was that he understood what I was going through, because he was experiencing the same thing and I had no clue. I never knew that he was experiencing depression or anxiety or any of these things. No absolute clue. I had no absolute clue that I ran in his family, and that this is something that he's been dealing with for years, even before I met him. And of course, I didn't wish that on him, and I'm not happy that he was going through that necessarily. But I will say that having someone that was going through that with me at the same time definitely helped me feel like I wasn't by myself, because this is a very crippling thing that you're experiencing. If you are experiencing something that makes you want to self-delete, you are probably surrounded by, or what you feel like you're surrounded by, no one. So having someone there to walk this path of darkness or whatever with you and trying to lift yourselves up and out of it, that's very, very important. So if you have a friend, if you have family, even if you don't think that they'll understand, try to talk to them about it, because you'll never know who understands or who's willing to help and who's going through the same thing. What these last couple of years have taught me is that the world is smaller than we think. We think that we're very isolated. We think that we are going through things that nobody else can understand. But the more you talk and the more that you have conversations with people, the more you realize that that's actually not the case. A lot of people are going through the things that you're going through, or similar things that you're going through. You just have to be open enough to talk to them about it. And once you talk to them about it, you never know how your words or vice versa could save lives. So it's really, really big. And that's why I'm so candid about everything that I've gone through in life, because I never know what I say or how what I say can affect one of you all that are watching. But I try to say things in a very positive and or uplifting way, or a way that makes you get up off your ass and makes you get to work. That way you can hopefully take those words and put them to action and get better at whatever it is that you're going through. And again, that's why you as well should be cognizant of the words that you say to people and vice versa, because you never know where or how your words can affect someone and where it can take them.
Everything in this world has a goal or a role to play. And when you think about it, ants play a part in the mound, bees play a part to the bee's nest, even birds. You have vultures that play a very, very important role when it comes to the ecosystem. You have bacteria that essentially decides whether you survive or die. Now, everything in life has a purpose. And one of the things that I think is very difficult in modern society is to find a purpose, because all of our conveniences are essentially handled for us, whether it be water, electricity, shelter. And you don't necessarily have to suffer in the same way that our ancestors did. You don't have to hunt and gather. You can work a part-time or even full-time job and survive a decent, relatively decent life. You can have very, very fattening and delicious foods for an affordable price. Therefore, the way that we have to find our purpose is different, because the way that we live on a day-to-day is different than our ancestors. Our purpose used to be very straightforward. Hey, I need to provide for my family, or I need to raise my children, or I have to do this for my business, whatever it might be. But nowadays, you have to actually go out and seek that purpose, because we're almost brought into a society that to a large degree is self-sustaining, because it has a lot of good systems in place that have worked for hundreds of years. And I think one of the biggest things, and the reason why a lot of people feel this existential dread, this self-deleting, this desire to do negative and irreparable things, is because of a lack of purpose and a lack of a sense of responsibility. You don't see that you owe certain people certain things, such as your parents, such as your ancestors. It might be that you just owe yourself. You owe it to yourself to see what you can live and what you can become through this life. Because in reality, you have no clue what you can become. You have no clue what can happen, and you have no clue who you can meet and who you can impact. And finding a purpose is something that is always evolving. There's a book called The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida, and he makes a point that living life is like an onion. At different series and cycles of your life, you peel back the layers of the onions, and you might have a different purpose. So, in high school, for us, our purpose could have been to be absolute beasts on the basketball court. And obviously, that's not our same purpose today. You have seasons in your life and things change throughout your life, and so does your purpose. And as you continue to go, so you will have to adapt your purpose. And I didn't realize that you were typing all that as well. I was just talking. My bad. I stole Austin's talking points. That's my fault.
But it's all good. But I think it's also a point that needs to be mentioned. You kind of touched on it, is you'll never know where you end up. And that's one thing that I thought about when I was at that low point. And I think that was, and of course, I know everyone doesn't subscribe to the religion I do, so I'm not going to make someone believe in what I believe in. However, I will say that definitely did help. But I would say the main thing besides that helped me was having the mindset of, okay, right now it feels like whatever I'm encountering is going to last forever. However, I know that I don't know that. It feels like that's the case. It feels like that this may last for the rest of my life. This negative feeling, this negative mindset that I have right now, it feels like it'll last the rest of my life. But am I 100% sure of that? Has there been any record of someone going through depression or going through a tough time and making it out and feeling like they are back to normal or feeling better than what they used to feel like? If there is, which there is, then there's a chance. And for you all that are going through that, I'm a living testimony to that. So if you feel like that you can't make it out and you feel like that this is all you'll be experiencing for the rest of life, I am here to tell you, and a living testimony to tell you, hey, that's not the case. You can get past this negative season or this hard season in your life. You just have to keep going. You may not know how long that may take. I didn't know how long it may take, but I ended up getting through it and now living life better than ever. And I think as well, you also have to keep in mind all the life that you will have now that you've gone through hard times, how you'll be able to deal with hard times in the future. I think that this has been a very important and good thing that has happened to me, and that's just how I view it. After it happened, I think that I can handle bullshit better than other people because I went through that level of bullshit and that level of anxiety and constant, overthinking all the time, day in, day out for a year or two plus. Now that when shit like that happens, I know better than to give certain things time and bandwidth in my mind. So if you're someone that's dealing with overthinking and things like that, to where that thought is constantly on your mind, self-deletion is constantly on your mind, you realize you have to think of thoughts as cars driving by. You don't necessarily have to give every car driving by, like the ones that we have driving by right now, attention. Just let them drive by, let them pass by, and you can choose what you want to give power to. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, and this is something that I had to learn, because once you have these constant thoughts going in and out your mind, you think that you have to pay attention to every single one of them. And the more that you try to not pay attention to them, the more you bring attention to them. So I understand it's difficult, but it can be done. And if you utilize that, and if you utilize grounding yourself, getting yourself out of your head, getting yourself into reality and into the world around you, it can easily transform, well, not easily, but it will transform the way that you think and the way that you do things, to where it will take that negative mindset, that depressive mindset that you have and the mind state that you have, and transform it into a more positive one. So that is something that you have to be mindful of, is the fact that, in my opinion, this may be a little more tougher love, but something that you did, a thought, a way of thinking, constant repetitive thoughts or constant repetitive actions or habits got you into the place that you are now. That has you in the place of the depressive mind state and mindset that you have now. But you have to realize, if you got there by doing that either consciously or subconsciously, that means that you have the power to reverse it. You have the power to change the way you think and change the way you act and change the way that you behave. And if you do that over a constant period of time, or a certain period of time, you'll be able to get yourself out of that hole that you dug yourself. So again, you may not be able to see it right now. You may not be able to get out of this right away, but it's something that you can do. You just have to stay committed to doing it. And then once you're out, you'll look around and you'll look up and say, wow, I haven't felt like that in some weeks, and I didn't even realize it, because you'll be too busy living life as opposed to sitting and stewing in your thoughts and sitting and stewing in your emotions.
There's only one last thing that I could say, and I'm ripping somebody off from this. And if you know who this is. It's, if you are considering self-deleting, get a 6-pack first. In the process of getting the 6-pack, you're going to realize a lot of things, and you're also going to mature in a lot of ways. And if you still feel like self-deleting after getting a 6-pack, well, then get an 8-pack. Because every time that you're dedicating yourself to whatever endeavor that it might be, you're going to progress in a certain way, and you have to grow not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what have you, as well as your surroundings. You're going to have to change them. You're going to have to change your habits. And a lot of times you're just not geared into what you're doing. And that's the main reason that you feel like self-deleting, because in Napoleon Hill's, what is it? The Talking with the Devil, or whatever. It's a book from Napoleon Hill that has to do with him having conversations with the devil, and essentially the devil coins the term drifter, and that's how he takes control of you. And so when you're drifting, it's that you have no definiteness of a purpose, and basically when you're drifting, you're wandering aimlessly with no direction and no guidance. And of course you're going to want to self-delete, because that's even more painful than the suffering that you have to endure in order to gain anything of value. It's more painful to take no action than to take action. You would rather not go through the pain of doing some wind sprints than sit there for the rest of your life as an obese, fat fuck who just can't get any women, who can't do anything, who can't touch his own toes, who can't walk outside without feeling a sense of shame. Which one hurts more? That 10 minutes of wind sprints and then the 3-4 days of soreness, or an entire lifetime of solitude, solace, and just subprime living? Those are questions that you need to ask. And I think that's one of the best ways to attack it, is just set a goal and work tirelessly to accomplish it. It doesn't have to be an outrageous or ridiculous goal. It can be something very simple and what other people might consider trivial. You might just want to be able to talk in front of a group of 15 people, and it can be that small of a goal. Shout out to one of our viewers. This is actually our first ever podcast topic request. So your name will go unmentioned, but if this is something that you are currently experiencing, we want you to know that you are not alone. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to whoever it might be. Always, if you have friends or family, talk to them about this. And just go outside, breathe some air, enjoy some nature, change your location, and start writing things down. Because if you write down what's on your mind, you'd be surprised that you don't even understand 90% of the things and the thoughts that you have and where they come from. And I think you'll make wonderful progress that way. But hey, we want you here. Do not self-delete. Let's get that clear. Because if nobody wants you, at least we do.
The AM Club Podcast.
Signing out.
Mic check. The AM Club Podcast.